So what is Bitcoin? What is cryptocurrency? And don't even get me started on NFTs. Welcome to the 11th episode of The Pivot. I'm James Deakin, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive on cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin by the man who wrote the book, or at least a book on it, on about the legalities around crypto and fintech. Welcome, attorney Rafael Padilla.
Thanks, James. Bernice, hello.
Hi everyone, you're watching The Pivot. This is basically your online legal guide to startups, business, and the whole online world. I'm James Deakin.
And I'm attorney Bernice Piñol, and this is part 2 of our episode on fintech, cryptocurrency, and the works. And I'm so happy to have my former law professor join us for this very, very interesting discussion. And so we'd like to encourage everyone to put in their comments on the comment section below if you have any questions. And so,
But before that, should they hit the like and subscribe?
Like, please. Yeah,
Otherwise,
like,
you will
subscribe.
be Yep.
Yeah, so we're both on Facebook and YouTube. So attorney, welcome again, and we're so happy to have you here. So in the last part of our time with attorney Padilla, we talked about the basics of fintech, right? And so now we're gonna talk about the basics of blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, because these are very intimidating terminologies, right, for the layman. And so can we break it down into simple terms, let's say. So let's start with let's say Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is Bitcoin and who is
Okay.
Satoshi?
All right.
so yeah, the basics, just how does it work?
All right. So, Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency. So it was originally the Bitcoin network launched on January 3, 2009. And so we can sometimes refer to Bitcoin as the decentralized payments network. We can also refer to Bitcoin as the unit of account in that network. So I guess Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, and I guess the next question there is, what is cryptocurrency?
That's right.
Cryptocurrency is a digital asset whose ownership is tracked and recorded in a ledger that is decentralized and kept by a community of users. There's no one company. There's no Bitcoin company or Bitcoin Inc. That administers or facilitates this payments network. It's just a network, a decentralized network maintained concurrently by different users. And the use case initially is for payments as a medium of exchange for electronic transactions. Obviously the market also has a different way of treating assets, and so we've seen in the past decade cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin's price has surged, and this has something to do with the fact that the market is also treating Bitcoin as a new asset class that they can invest on.
Yeah, people are hearing that, in the news that it's rising, it's going down, but they don't really know the basics of it, right? Like, what is it about? I think there was this one particular night that I just spent time studying Satoshi Nakamoto and just studying the blockchain technology. It's very sophisticated. But can you make it simple, attorney? So the ledger that you mentioned earlier is actually created by the blockchain, right? So what is a blockchain? Is it physical chains? Is it chain of custody?
Okay, so a blockchain is a digital artifact. No, it's a network.
It's a program.
Yeah.
Would you say it's a program?
Would you consider protocol?
It's more of a network, more of an underlying network. On top of that, there can be protocols. But so a blockchain is a decentralized ledger. Shared among community of users, and it's designed to maintain a record of accounts or transactions.
That's right.
And it's immutable, right?
And nobody, that's one of the key features of this blockchain or distributed ledger, is that it's practically immutable. You cannot change the data and the transactions that are already incorporated in that blockchain. It's called blockchain because you have a series of blocks that are chained by to other blocks, and this practically immutable characteristic or feature of blockchain may have significant applications or use cases. No?
When you say immutable, it means it cannot
be changed. Cannot be changed.
Or hacked. Would you say that?
The network, it really depends, because there are many implementations of blockchains and distributed ledgers. But if we're talking about Bitcoin, yes, the network itself cannot be hacked. As what we have seen so far, at least in the past 8 or 9 years, the network has been proven to be very secure.
Right, cannot be manipulated.
Yes, and
If
so
somebody tries to manipulate it, can it be traced? Or?
in theory it can, although we have not seen that in the case of the Bitcoin network. I say by theory because we have this so-called 51% attack, wherein if a certain group of miners are able to control at least 51% of the network, then they can change the transaction, alter previous transactions. Because of the network of users in the Bitcoin have become big, it has become more secure. But we have seen in this theory of 51% attack happen in other networks, like the Ethereum Classic network, not Ethereum, but rather the old chain that was where you have the coin Ethereum Classic. We have seen this, I think, in Bitcoin Gold.
Okay.
I think Verge. So there are some cryptocurrency network already where this 51% attack has happened.
I love the way you explain it because it's very simple how you describe it as basically an open ledger. It's a digital unit of account for this whole
network.
entire network and all that. But I find also another way that I like to explain it to people is look at the problem you're trying to solve.
Okay.
Because then it becomes a little bit easier to relate to it. If you're trying to look at Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies without the problem to solve, it's all Greek to you. It just comes up as very
So what
intimidating
problem
numbers.
is that?
The problem is a legacy system, which is
Okay.
how Satoshi basically, when he did block one, he inserted that headline of the bank collapse because everyone realized at that stage that the system was rigged.
Yeah.
And the bailout was just another way of, oh my goodness, this is even reinforcing the fact that we're living in this system that it's very corrupt. It is designed to favor those that make the rules. And so here he created a system where it was peer-to-peer.
There's autonomy.
Yes, there's peer-to-peer. It is decentralized. I think that's the biggest aspect
That's
that we
right.
should communicate to people is that there's no one person, entity, or anything
That controls it.
The 51% is also very was a real threat at one point. Even though when they say technically it's possible, it's almost impossible because you'd have to get into cahoots and get the consensus to all agree on something that was not legit. That's very hard to do. But then when they took the mining out of China, this really helped the problem because they had a huge saturation of miners in China. Now they're all over the world.
Yeah, so it's more decentralized
Yes.
now.
Yeah. Can you tell the audience what a miner is? A Bitcoin or like a crypto miner?
Not anyone 18
Yeah,
and
in,
under.
in
no.
sim-
Not
yeah.
minor.
Different. A minor, yeah.
very technical concept, but in simpler terms,
Yes.
this refers to participants in the network
Okay.
that assist in the validation of the transactions.
Securing.
Yeah.
They do this by contributing computing power to process that validation process in
So
the
all they need is a
network.
laptop, or they have like a hard drive.
Before they
Originally-
did, before a long
originally,
time ago.
Yeah.
Now?
Because the network, the Bitcoin network is designed to become more difficult as it grows in terms of like this validation, and there are also some miners who have realized that they can use a more specific equipment to be more efficient in this validation process. It started with graphic processing units or GPUs,
Okay.
and then it eventually evolved to this specialized types of computer that we refer to
Right.
as application-specific integrated circuits or
you have
ASIC.
one?
No, I don't.
They're bad.
But they have a lot of
Sure.
that in China
Oh,
and
okay.
in Iceland, Venezuela.
Oh.
And now Texas is doing it.
I
is
think
making
Tita
it
James
work.
has that at
Yeah.
home.
No, I don't. But
No, really.
I see where you're going, and just to answer that, at one point you could use your laptop, and technically,
Yeah.
theoretically, you
Right.
still
You
could,
can, Uh-uh.
and become one of the nodes. But it's just like anything; it got more
It become
competitive. Yeah, so it's
professional.
like So I mean, at one point, it was like if you consider it, let's say, in the days when alcohol prohibition is how NASCAR started. You had
Yeah.
cars that were delivering the alcohol, but then as the demand got bigger, faster cars were the ones that,
Yep.
and so yeah, you could still deliver it in your pickup truck. But if somebody was using their V8 427 Hemi,
Yeah.
you ain't gonna deliver as
Yeah.
much. The same thing happened with mining.
Yeah.
The way it was explained is it gets more complex. So there's an investment, and these people secure the network.
Yeah.
So it does, but this also opens up another layer where smart contracts, and I want you to be able to explain that to people. What exactly are smart contracts?
So smart contracts are computer transaction protocols that automatically execute the terms of the contract. The concept was developed by a computer scientist, Nick Szabo, who happened to be a legal scholar as well. The technology wasn't ready for these types of applications where contractual terms are being executed or enforced automatically until the launch of Bitcoin. The launch of Bitcoin demonstrated that there is now this technology that could enable the automatic execution of contracts, especially in a decentralized manner. And so for a very long time also, the concept of smart contracts, even when we already have Bitcoin and blockchain, was still a bit abstract until the Ethereum network launched on in July 2015. And what that did is because the Ethereum network was designed to be a blockchain network to power smart contracts and decentralized applications. No, so you now have a platform that is specifically designed for smart contracts. And fast forward to today, we now have applications like decentralized finance or DeFi and non-fungible tokens, no, even play to earn games, no, even decentralized exchanges that demonstrate the use of these smart contracts no, in practice.
Yeah. So attorney, just to kind of like make it so simple for our audience and also to the lawyers out there, you know, smart contracts, we study Oblicon attorney.
Yeah.
You were teaching Oblicon also, right? So it's like completely mind-blowing that this kind of, you know, technology has come about. And so how does it change the whole legal system, and how does it work really? Like, just to illustrate, like for example, you know, we enter into like there's a smart contract between our transaction and with our transaction, like how is that fleshed
Let's
out
say,
really?
theoretically, could I do this as an example? If I was to lend or rent my unit to Attorney Bernice,
The
right?
one in Rockwell.
Yeah, or yeah, let's just say, but then I put an electronic lock on that door, right? And I say, okay, you can rent it for whatever we agree on, rental, and you deposit it in here. If she doesn't deposit, the door automatically doesn't open, let's say. And that can be controlled by a smart contract.
Yeah.
Theoretically, is that a practical use for a smart contract?
Yes, indeed.
So it
That's in fact
eliminates
one of
that
the-
human element of
So you don't have to
Enforcement.
lock me out anymore.
yes,
Yep.
enforcement and awkwardness and, you know, magbayad ka ng utang mo, Attorney Bernice, walang hiya ka, walang ganon. She just can't open the door because, but it needs to be, so you can lend money to each other.
Yeah. So you see the traditional way of enforcing contracts is one, a party will comply,
Demand letter.
or a party will comply first, right? But if a party refuses, if a party breaches the contract, then you'll have to go to some dispute resolution mechanism. Either you sue in court or you trigger an arbitration process, and then that court or arbitrator will now issue an order to compel a party to observe the terms of the contract. But now, again, there is now a technology that can allow terms of the contract to be executed automatically. And perhaps,
crazy.
in the case of Axie Infinity, I guess it's very easy to give that as an example of how a smart contract
That's a whole other rabbit hole.
can work. And decentralized exchanges, we have many Axie Infinity players who actually use Uniswap to exchange their SLP. Right now, it's very easy because there are local virtual asset service providers like Bloom who would trade your SLP to Philippine peso. But before that, many of these Axie Infinity players would have to go to an exchange to convert their SLP to Ether and then convert that Ether to peso. But the way they can do that is by going to this decentralized exchange called Uniswap.
Yeah.
And now Binance.
And Uniswap, yeah.
I think Binance offers SLP now.
But Binance is a centralized platform.
Okay, sorry.
What's interesting about this about Uniswap is it's a completely decentralized,
Yeah.
So peer-to-peer?
powered, yes, peer-to-peer decentralized exchange powered by smart contracts.
Yeah.
So you see what you can see here, you have
Interconnected.
players who probably don't even know that much or who may have superficial knowledge about cryptocurrency
Yeah.
or blockchain. They only know crypto or SLP because they play Axie Infinity, but they don't realize that they're actually dealing with smart contracts.
Yeah, yeah.
Using it even if you don't really understand it.
But do you
right?
see smart contracts being used in like the legal system, like as a common thing?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. We have
Right now, it's very rare. Halos
Yes,
wala.
yes.
Yeah.
But one thing that I want to highlight is in China, they actually already have this internet courts who have created this special dispute resolution mechanism for online commerce, e-commerce transactions, and though that mechanism is actually powered by smart contract.
Okay. Do you
So-
think that? Sorry to cut you, attorney.
Yeah,
but do
sure.
you think that this smart contract mechanism and this technology will make us lawyers irrelevant in the future?
Not
I fear
really.
for my job. I fear
Yeah,
for
yeah,
my
yeah. I feel yeah. I can sense
Are
your
we gonna
urgency in
be
the voice.
obsolete?
No.
No, yeah.
The work will just evolve.
That's right.
In the same manner that I'm not sure how familiar you are with this, but there was a time before that lawyers dictate the contents of a pleading to a secretary, and it's the secretary who types the pleading. Some secretaries have been disintermediated by that because of more convenient word processors where lawyers can now type their and draft their pleadings
Or text to
directly,
speech.
right? Or like
Speech to
that.
text.
Yeah.
But you see, secretaries were not disintermediated by that. The
just
function
evolved.
of a secretary or administrative assistant just evolved. In the case of lawyers, one of our manual cumbersome work is to draft contracts
That's
or to like write demand letters if a party refuses to comply with the terms of the contract.
Yeah.
But with smart contracts, we will no longer in some cases we might no longer have to do that. We can also minimize disputes and therefore declog the courts.
Yes.
If some of these transactions or some disputes can be avoided because the terms of the contracts are now being enforced automatically. And for us lawyers, what will happen there is we can now focus on more high quality
right.
kind of work like advisory rather than the manual cumbersome drafting of
yeah.
contracts, the drafting of letters,
That's right.
or suing somebody.
Makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, but that's how lawyers are paid high. So-
Yes, but definitely,
So
as
you
you
just
said,
have
the
to
work evolves, so
pivot.
you have
Yeah.
higher quality
Yes.
work later
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that you need to do. Now, you mentioned earlier, I think it was offline when you mentioned this, that you had been already accepting cryptocurrency as payment
Yeah.
for your services for a number of years now. How does taxation? How does the Philippine government look at the taxation of it? How does the BSP look at crypto?
Okay, so we have broad principles in our Internal Revenue Tax law, such that it doesn't really matter what the nature of the income is, as long as
It's income.
Yeah, it's an income. It's a source or a flow of wealth. So we can't really make an argument that just because something was received in Bitcoin, therefore it's not taxable.
taxable.
So the moment you receive Bitcoin as payment for your service or for your goods or service, that's already subject to income tax. But what's the price? Because it's volatile, right?
Yeah.
We will have to consider the price of the cryptocurrency like Bitcoin at the moment it was received. So right now, if somebody pays you for your
Bad news for
service
some.
at
It's taxable.
40, Bitcoin right now is at 40, hovering at around 48,000 US. Then even if you receive payment in Bitcoin, that's already
Yeah.
considered that income. It's as if you receive 1 Bitcoin right now, it's as if you received an income of 48,000 US.
So
That's right.
48,000 was 5
And-
minutes ago.
yeah,
could
it
be-
doesn't
It
matter.
could be 46 now.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter whether you convert that Bitcoin to peso
Okay, I have a
for
question
tax
then, though.
purposes.
If we're doing that, because that makes sense to me, I understand how you would say, all right, let's do it at market value, and I will declare that to the BIR. But then, do you pay capital gains tax on it? Is it considered as, because you don't pay twice, right?
Okay.
It's either you pay capital gains or income tax.
Okay.
If I bought Bitcoin and I put it into I pay capital gains when I make money out of it. But do I pay income? Isn't there a conflict?
All right. Okay. Now, when it comes to capital gains tax, become relevant when the underlying transaction is like a buy and hold scenario, your investment. Right. Capital gains tax will not be relevant if you're receiving it as payment, right? But if you're like buying Bitcoin right now because it's dipping at like 48,000 US, but you expect that long term it will appreciate in value, and let's say you sold that Bitcoin when the price of Bitcoin is 100,000, so you basically made a gain of 52,000 US. No? So that's where capital gains will be important. But here in the Philippines, in terms of like tax implication of that, when you trade an asset or a property, it is the gains there, whether capital or ordinary gains, is subject to the same ordinary income tax rate, except for two types of assets, and that's shares of stocks and real estate, which are subject to a specific capital gains tax, 6%. In the case of real estate, it's 6%. So in the case of Bitcoin, it's not gonna be subject to like a specific capital gains tax rate. This is the topic of capital gains tax would typically be discussed in jurisdictions like US, because for them it's general that as long as it's treated as capital gains tax, then there's a special rate for that. In fact, in many jurisdictions, when you earn capital gains, it's not subject to tax at all. Like for example, Singapore, Hong Kong, there are many jurisdictions that if you're earning capital gains, it's not subject to tax. But here in the Philippines, when you earn a capital gains, like for example, you're trading in crypto, yes, for accounting purposes, you'll have to identify that as capital gains. Nevertheless, in terms of the taxation rate there, it's going to be treated as if it's an ordinary income. Well, in the case of an individual, that's going to be a progressive rate. Top rate is of course 35%. And for a company, for example, you have a company who's holding cryptocurrency or Bitcoin as part of its treasury reserve, that's going to be 20% corporate income tax, or in some cases, 25%, right?
Yeah. So anything that you earn as income is taxable.
Yes,
because
even
this
if
is the question with Axie players. Also.
Yes, because they're using it on that model is fun. They do it on the 15th and the 30th. They're really using it as their salary.
That's taxable also.
Just to close this particular topic on Bitcoin, like when you get the capital gains or whatever, if I'm buying the Bitcoin, I'm only paying the capital gains in the country where I withdrew, right? I mean, like because let's just say you're buying your Bitcoin here because it's global and there's no actual jurisdiction for it. So if I'm buying my Bitcoin and then I move country and then I take it out in El Salvador, let's say I decide I want to move to El Salvador, I pay El Salvador government because I'm taking Bitcoin and putting into a local bank account. Philippines has nothing anymore to do with it.
Well, I think there may be cases where that would be the outcome, but in most cases for Filipinos, and if you're a resident here in the Philippines, you will be subject to tax wherever you earn that income, because Philippine residents, resident citizens are taxable based when it comes to their worldwide income.
Okay.
That might make a difference the way you're describing it. If, for example, you are a non-resident Filipino or you are a resident alien. But so I guess that's something that should be considered by our audience. Even if you earned it because you're using an offshore crypto exchange, right? It doesn't really affect the analysis if you are a resident Filipino citizen.
Yeah, because if I'm earning in, let's say, resident Filipino or resident here, and you're earning in Philippine pesos, you're paying your income tax in Philippine fiat pesos, 35% or whatever the rate is. And then, okay, so now you have your 65%. I'm going to buy Bitcoin with that. I've already paid taxes on that amount. So that Bitcoin's mine.
Yeah.
And there's no jurisdiction because I bought it from an exchange that's really, decentralized.
Yeah.
And so now anywhere I go, that money's mine. I have custody of that. And then if I cash out in the United States, then that would be subject, I guess, to an income tax of some sort or an invest. It gets tricky, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
It's a challenge to regulate.
It does
Yeah,
get to be a challenge, because I know that the reason I'm asking is some people look at crypto as a form of this autonomy or personal sovereignty, so custody over their own finances, and you can't take this. But we have to be clear about there are tax implications, because it is income. If you got paid in bananas, you'd still have to give 30% of your bananas to the government. In
Or you'll
theory.
have to convert it in fiat.
Well, yes, because it's a legal tender, right? You
in
can only pay
Philippine
in
peso.
legal tender.
So Bitcoin is a legal tender in the Philippines.
It's not.
No.
It's
El
not.
Salvador.
But there's one country in El Salvador, in June of this year, they enacted a new law, Ley Bitcoin.
That's right.
In legal terms, made Bitcoin a legal tender.
And crazily, they launched shortly after that, I think around November, the Bitcoin City, which even amplified it, because they said they announced zero capital gains, zero property tax, zero income tax. The only thing you'd pay was a VAT. So you can see how the culture is starting to move.
Yeah.
They're starting to create
To
friendly
create,
jurisdictions
haven.
for
Yeah.
crypto havens, because they see this as the future, and they see a lot of disenfranchised investors coming from the US. US have particularly strict rules that globally, no matter where you are, you pay a US tax. So a lot of people who are invested have a lot of money. They're trying to escape this. Portugal also have similar friendly rules.
Yeah.
And I do see this playing out throughout the world, where we're going to have sort of very jurisdictions that play to this, and they're going to create a whole digital economy around this, because we're going to have digital nomads soon.
Yeah.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
Bernice, James, I just want to clarify, because Bitcoin is not a legal tender, and
But is it
I
legal?
think the usual next question there is it therefore legal or illegal
Yes,
to
yes.
use Bitcoin or to accept
That's
Bitcoin
asked
as
all the
payment?
time.
Not necessarily. In fact, most of the time it will not be illegal to do that.
Yeah.
That's because although Bitcoin is not a legal tender, we used to have a law. It's called the Uniform Currency Act, enacted in 1951, which used to require individuals and companies to only accept legal tender here in the Philippines. But that law was actually abolished already as of 1996, which means today parties can legally agree to
On the currency.
on the term whatever currency they want to accept as payment. So if parties agreed in their contract that they will accept cryptocurrency like Bitcoin
Yes, yeah.
or
Or
SLP
Doge, maybe.
or
Well-
SLP, which in practice actually is happening.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenon that many merchants today are
Even taxi
accepting.
drivers are accepting it
Accepting
now.
SLP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
I see that, because you can accept it on mobile. You can have a
Yeah.
QR code,
Yeah.
and if the taxi driver seems to,
Yeah.
his place or his kids play, he
Kailan?
accepts that. But before we go on, we also accept likes and subscribe as
Very
our
smooth.
form. And this is a legal
Or
agreement
Bitcoin.
now.
I don't mind Bitcoin.
Or
at
if you
all.
want some Bitcoin, that's totally cool. But this is how, if you like the content and this is what we can agree on as payment. Just hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and share it. Yeah, just share.
Yeah.
nobody's forcing them to accept
Oh no, I'm
it,
forcing
right?
them now. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's a good
I'm watching.
clarification that
Yeah.
it's not a legal tender, but it is legal.
It's
But legal
but-
tender, for the sake of for clarity, it means they are required to accept it. So if
Yes.
like in El Salvador, if a merchant says no, I don't accept your Bitcoin, that's against the law, because it's
Yes.
legal tender.
Yes.
And
There-
taxes can be paid in Bitcoin.
There's just an exception there under Ley Bitcoin that if the merchant doesn't have the facility or the technology
Yes,
to accept it, then they can refuse it. No? So
That's
so
good,
there's
that's good.
But you can pay your taxes in a legal tender.
Yeah.
So
and,
Bitcoin.
And one thing that they've clarified also there is that there's no capital gains tax now when it comes to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin transactions.
And what they've already done in El Salvador, one of the huge problems that they solved with crypto was already remittances. So remittances were, they're saving $400 million a year just on the fees. So friction costs just to keep money going in and out of from remittances was
Transaction
$400 million for a
Yeah.
country
Yeah.
that's only 5 or 6 million people.
Yeah.
That's a substantial saving. And then, of course, it's attracted the IMF's attention,
Yeah.
it attracted the World Bank.
Yeah.
And how much of that are just scare tactics, do you think? Yung IMF and yung World Bank, oh, no, be careful, don't crypto that, because they have control over you when they lend you money.
I think it's more of assessing the risk from a traditional paradigm. they refuse to understand that the current international monetary system will not last forever, and so
Might not last till next year.
we don't know yet what could be the centerpiece of the next international monetary system, but they're very protective of what they currently enjoy, I guess. So
Do you see we have only like 2-3 minutes left, and
No, but
we're
I
both
actually
racing.
have one last
You go
question,
for the last one.
Because attorney, we're gonna have an episode on NFTs, right? Like it's a more deep dive. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
kind of
have
want
to
to
have a
ask
dedicated
you,
one for that.
what does NFT mean? And can you give us like the
Okay.
lowdown on it, like just the basics?
An
of
intro
NFTs?
to the next
Nice.
episode.
NFT
Yeah.
NFT means non-fungible tokens,
Yes.
or we can just refer to them as NFTs. These are tokens that, unlike cryptocurrencies, which are fungible, fungibility means it's capable of substitution, which means these NFTs cannot be substituted. Usually, when you mint an NFT, this token is unique or there's a limited edition.
What do you mean
What-
by mint?
When you create it, no, when you create it.
The
This is one of the application for blockchain technology, because we understand blockchain as a blockchain as a ledger keeping technology. It records the transactions, it records ownership, and this record of transaction and this technology can also be used in non-monetary applications,
Right.
such as recording of ownership, whether that's land. In theory, yes, but there are already some countries
Artwork.
who are working on this. And also, most important is digital assets like artwork or even collectibles. So this is what NFT is.
So how does that work? If your
You're gonna
artwork
have to
will be-
save those for the next
30 seconds,
episode.
please. How does it work if you want to register your artwork, let's say?
Okay,
Yeah. Are you gonna lose your copyright? So
yeah.
there are like so many.
the traditional paradigm again is remember our discussions on decentralization. We have been accustomed to a central authority verifying ownership or keeping a record of ownership. That's true when it comes to lands here in the Philippines, when it comes to motor vehicles, when it comes to intellectual property as well. But now there is this alternative registration framework network that relies on a technology that is open to everyone, where you can actually record in a reliable manner the ownership and the history of ownership of assets. So this can be applied for, again, collectibles, also for certain artwork.
Eventually, land
And,
titles.
hopefully so, right?
Eventually,
because
yeah.
it will really solve the problem of double sale,
Double
right?
sale.
Like the same manner that Bitcoin solved the problem of double spending. That's exactly what blockchain technology
Was
allows.
created
So
for, yeah.
if we adopt, for example, if there's a way that we can tokenize, the concept of tokenization, tokenize land titles, all right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can now prevent the multiple sale of properties, because
That's right.
once you transfer the tokenized land title, then that goes to the new buyer or to the new acquirer of that, and the seller could no longer transfer it to another buyer.
Nice.
And
So
tokenizing
that's-
is another fascinating topic altogether,
Yeah,
because it would open up
tokenization.
real estate to every Tom,
Yeah.
Dick, and Harry or Juan in the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
That's why we have to have you again.
We really got to have you there. But I want to get your final thoughts before we go. Do you see cryptocurrency replacing fiat or coexisting with fiat, and in what time frame?
It's going to coexist.
Coexist.
And then I can't say for sure if the market will gravitate towards a market-based monetary system like Bitcoin. Although that is my hope, because I think that is something that will enhance our freedoms and our rights. But yeah, the market will have to decide on that. But what would be very important is for the market to decide on that. This is one thing, by the way, that I would typically criticize about lay Bitcoin, El Salvador's law that made Bitcoin illegal tender. So I come from the notion that the market would have to choose the money that works, the sound money that works for them. And what you're actually doing with law like lay Bitcoin is to actually force individuals to accept Bitcoin.
They don't use US
rather
as
than
well?
voluntarily use it. US dollar is still a legal tender.
Okay, so they have a choice at the moment.
yeah. So they can choose. Yes, they can choose.
Okay, so then moving forward, your recommendation would be yes, keep an option open. That keeps competition. And let the free market decide.
That has a disciplining effect also for like central banks. If the fiat currency will compete against a market-based alternative, then perhaps they will become more responsible. I think it was Saifedean Amos who said that the number one or the number one competitor of Bitcoin or Bitcoin's opponent is not competitor is not really Ethereum, not Ripple XRP or Dogecoin or any other cryptocurrency for that matter, but rather the number one competition for Bitcoin is actually responsible central bankers.
Wow.
I mean, if central bankers will be
if we could only
responsible,
find
then,
some.
right? Then if the legal tenders or fiat currencies are reliable stores of value, then
Exactly.
what's the use for Bitcoin?
That's right.
Bitcoin is useless.
That's right.
But there must be a reason why the market, many people, many individuals, especially in countries dominated by totalitarian regimes, why people are gravitating towards Bitcoin.
But having the choice, I guess, is the key there, and that's what it's all about. But you know what? Choices are worth nothing if you're not informed. That's why we have this show. What a segue. You got to give me a high five for that,
good
right?
job.
There you go. But
Good
that
job.
pretty much wraps up this show. That's all we've got time for. But we're going to somehow figure out a way how to get Attorney Padilla back here because we still got to talk so much more about NFTs. There's so much more about crypto. This is the way of the future. So please do join us as we try and get another episode there. But maybe if you get into the comments section and you start leaving some really nice messages for Attorney Padilla, he will have no option but to say yes to us. So on behalf of myself, I'm James Deakin. We couldn't have done this show without the following.
We'd like to thank Mama Lou's Italian Kitchen for always supporting us. Thank you, Crystal, David, and Chef Carlos. And of course, this show is brought to you by the law firm of Piñol, Santos and Associates, and the Acclaim Group of Companies, and Home Lab.
Yes, Home Lab always keep us safe here. We always get our swabs just before we go on. And if you need to do the same, you can do that in the comfort of your own home. You can download the app, either Google or the iOS App Store. So till next week, stay safe, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.